Welcome along, one and all, to League of Europe Season 11 once again. This is the sixth round of this season's championship, coming to you from Catalonia. The Spanish Grand Prix is getting underway very, very shortly. Again, round 6, we saw a fascinating mixed conditions race at Singapore last week, so hopefully we get more and more action just like that tonight. To take you through the action here tonight, it is myself as usual, but as Jake is once again not with us, I've brought along an old friend then. Jake Cole is alongside me tonight. How are you doing, Jack?
Yeah, I'm all good, man. It's been a while. It feels like it's been quite some time since we've done a commentary together, let alone just in the League of Europe. I mean, I don't think we actually even got around to doing one in 24 hours of F1 this year, so it feels like it's been quite a long time. But I'm looking forward to seeing how this is going to go down in Division 1 for this evening, and yeah, I think this is going to be a really good race.
Hopefully that is to be the case. So we did start the stream just slightly late. Only 14 drivers in the lobby. We should get 2 more joining, I believe was the case. So we could have a 16-car grid, which is still, of course, not what we want, but ultimately is what we have to make do with. Pull times should be around about the mid to high 110 range, which Slash is already approaching with that opening lap, just dipping in to the 1 minute 10s. Trying to see anyone that's on laps. Of course, we are still at this very early stage of the session, so most drivers haven't really got their runs underway as of yet, at least fully. And of course, with the tyre allocation rules, everyone's going to look to try and save some of those tyres for the mandatory 2-stop race that we have in League of Europe this season. But Jack, on this track, well, we've had big modifications over the last couple of years to that last sector, ultimately meaning this is a very flowing track from start to finish, and, well, I would say far more enjoyable to drive, although from what I've heard, some of the D1 drivers may disagree.
Yeah, I mean, that last chicane, I think it just makes it a lot harder for an overtake to sort of come out of the final corner, but at least with the second to last corner now just being pretty much flat out, it does make it a lot easier to overtake if you are just sort of sitting behind someone as well. But the thing is that in that final corner, it can be a lot harder to try and get that right, because if you try and maybe over push that just a tiny bit, your car's ending up in that gravel, and I am going to suspect we may see a couple of guys do that tonight in Division 1, trying to, of course, complete the fastest quali lap as possible. And at the moment, I'm just riding on board with Rocco, just as he's making his way around the final sector now on the hard tyres, because I think he is trying to save a couple of soft tyres for this race, which I don't blame him. So he's just making his way now around the final corner. Again, it's very difficult to try and get right.
Dear.
Unfortunately, invalidates it. And exactly what I was saying, it's so tough to try and get that last corner right. That's one of the more critical ones, because it's so easy to just wash them out, as you've just seen. So hopefully he'll be able to get another run done. And again, he's on the hards, so I don't think he's really going to be able to it wouldn't have been really that much of a competitive time. Maybe when he's on the softs, we'll see a much more competitive time from him anyway.
Well, speaking of competitive times, that is a monster opening lap from Russell then, a 1:10.6. That is phenomenally fast. Shadowglow, who we're finally seeing returning to the championship on a 1:10.9, 3:10 slower than that opening lap from the man who took 2 consecutive race wins in Zandvoort and Monza, and, well, setting out a bit of an early benchmark. Cucumber is just 1/10 of a second slower, though, through the first 2 sectors, so could also be on a pretty competitive lap. But again, I said mid 110, so Russell already in that range. Cucumber rounding that final corner completely flat out if you get the line right, and coming up to the line, and it is again just about 1/10 of a second slower, so he's right in the ballpark, looking to get his season really kicked off. He's at 2 second places, but even still you'd sense he could want to move further into that championship fight, so he's got himself up on the right foot. But that opening lap from Russell in the Alpine is an absolute stormer, and even with more laps to come later on, that looks like a pretty tough time to beat.
Yeah, it certainly is a tough time to beat, and I mean, first set of times that we've got on the board already, I'm noticing Mr. QVR Gary's the second slowest one so far, so don't worry, Gaza. I know it's getting towards the end of the game cycle, so you've only got a couple more months just to make those excuses, but P7 at the moment for him, 11.056 is still going to be quicker than probably what I would have done anyway, so may as well just have my last at it while I can. But I know I can see that Rocco is still just sort of out on those hard compound tyre. I think he's actually going for another run properly now on the hards. And as I said, I see the red flashing light on the back of his car. So, Mr. Luco 5HD. I know I raced him last season. Very quick in Division 2, of course being the champion of Division 2 as well. It was nice to see him doing actually pretty decent in Division 1. I think he's sitting, am I correct in saying, about like mid-pack of Division 1, if I'm not mistaken?
Well, he is actually 19th in the standings, but he has...
okay, maybe not.
He has scored points in every race he's finished, which ultimately owes a lot to the new points allocation down to the top 15 finishers in the race. And unfortunately this lap doesn't look particularly fast either, as we do finally get someone joining into the session. I believe that was Jim coming in the AlphaTauri for tonight. So round the final corner, Luke goes down a gear then, revving it out in 6th coming up to the line, and it's a 1:11.3, goes in front of Lars Vanderliden, who we finally see making an appearance in Division 1 on a 1:11.6, and Rocco's rather uncompetitive 1:13.4 on the hards. I believe Pease is out there, 50.3 for the first two sectors, and we've got a series of drivers on outlap. So we're getting into that mid phase of the session, but ultimately you're not seeing that kind of chaos that you might normally get in qualifying, because everyone is holding back, looking to get those tyres in for the race. P's over the line, 1:11.2, goes 8th.
Yeah, P8 for P is not too bad of a time so far for him, but I'm going to go on board with our current championship leader, just starting his lap now, making his way around turn number 3 in the McLaren, trying to keep as much of a tight line as he possibly can. Now up towards turn 4, 21.4 in the first sector. Not the quickest that we've seen so far, but we'll see if he's able to try and capitalise it in the second and last sector as well. Now making his way down through turn number 6, quite easy to get on the power very early, but then can be easy to spin out on that one, and probably I'd say the two trickiest corners on the circuit, which doesn't look to be tricky, but they are of turns 7 and turn 8, and now making his way up into the second DRS zone of the circuit, and of course now the newly turn number 10, which of course has been revamped for a couple years now, but I suppose it's only just come into the game as of last year. So now making his way up towards the final two corners is Verstappen. Again, keeping it flat out through the first of the two, in towards the second one, keeping it flat out as well. Doesn't drop down again like we saw Luke do. Up towards the line he comes, our championship leader, into P5 of the 110.936, 4 thousandths of a second behind Shadow Glow. Little bit more of an improvement, and that would have at least bumped him up, maybe even up ahead of Chris.
Yeah, right in the ballpark then, Slash with just the slightest of improvements, 7 thousandths of a second. Gary did find a better time, 1:11 flat still for him in the second of the McLarens. Down the pit straight, I believe Jim's just starting his flying lap, so we'll keep an eye on him. And further along then is one of the Red Bulls, Lifeboat. He's just kicked one off, the former Division 2 champion. So still at that mid phase of the session, couple of drivers on laps. Fleddy in the Ferrari has found some time in that middle sector, is nearly 0.2 of a second up out of turn 10, using some of that green AstroTurf on the outside, opening up to turn 12, and a delicate balance of the throttle pedal as you fly through to the exit, then turn 13 and the final corner at 14, using that curve to open it up. Is a little bit wide, and too wide in fact, goes over that white line at the final corner, and that ultimately brings to an end a lap which would have moved him up to around about where Slash is then on a 1:10.9. So the former championship leader here in Division 1 still in 5th in the standings, very close at the top of the standings then, but that DNF in Singapore costing him dearly. He runs 9th at the moment then, very close to a couple of the guys in front of him, as Jim coming up to the final corner now, completely out of battery, and Slash is retired. That looks to be in the pit lane, done with his session, as his Lifeboat. Actually, it's gone off coming out turn 12 by the looks of things then, and that just brings to an end his session prematurely, presumably by his own mistake there in the last sector.
Yeah, it certainly is, and we've also just got Hazara joining in the session as well, so nice to see that he is also making an appearance. And There's 16 drivers now for this evening, so at least one person in this lobby is not going to be getting a point, which is going to be quite interesting. But just riding on board with Mr. Sweet Crown as he's making his way up towards the end of the second sector to see what Wowzer is able to do, as now's DRS going to be enabled for the second time in this lap for himself. Up towards the end of the second sector, so 50.052, it's not looking like a bad time whatsoever. This could probably put him around where Verstappen and Shadow Glow are, maybe even in between the pair of them, if that is going to be as tight as it can get. But around the final two corners now comes Mr. Sweet Crown, and around the final corner as well, he shifts it down a gear just like what we saw Luke do as well. Up towards the line he comes though, so 110.921, just up ahead of Shadow Glow, just behind Chris, 11 thousandths of a second, but it's P4 can all make the difference of just being that one grid slot ahead. So we'll see what Sweet Crown's able to do, if he's able to maybe hold it and go for one more lap.
Yeah, you said he might split Shadowglow and Verstappen. In the end of the day, nearly dead. Shadowglow himself, though, is on a flyer in the Williams. Then he drops it into second in the final corner. Then opening up now, full throttle to the line. It is second by the smallest of margins, just 100th and a bit behind Russell's time. So that just stands the test of time for the moment then, but very, very tight. Certainly out there. Cucumber himself is on a fast one. I think he just caught the grass then, heading out of turn 5, and ultimately bit of instability, heading through the very tricky uphill. Turns 7 and 8 now through 9. We'll see what the second sector is looking like. He found about a tenth of a second in the first sector, but he has lost most of that time, if not a bit more, throughout these second sectors. So that fairly, well, I would say academic mistake has cost Cucumber here, and he's out of shape through turn 12 and backs off of that lap in the Alpha.
Yeah, that was looking like a really nice lap up until he went into the grass, as you was just saying as well. So hopefully he's able to get himself back in the pit. So he's got plenty of time. He's just making his way in now. So yeah, get himself back into the pits, get on another set of softs and go back on out. But that's going to mean that Cucumber would have used, I think, 3 of his soft tyres. And as I say that, in fact, he's actually coming to pits to retire. So the best he's going to qualify now is P3. He's got hope that none of the guys behind him are going to make any improvements on their lap times. And I mean, with how close the grid is so far, I mean, first all the way down to P's, separated by just under 0.6 of a second. So any small margin of improvement, I think Cucumber might regret retiring from the session. If he had a fresh set of softs, I probably would have used those to try and see if you can keep within that top 3, because I get the feeling a lot of these guys are going to make improvements.
Well, we'll see if that is to be the case. Because he is, well, just over a tenth of a second off pole. We'll see if he slides down the board any, because we have a lot of drivers on laps now, starting with Verstappen, heading out of that final corner then, opening up the DRS and the throttle and all the battery as he heads down. Watch that speedo climb as he heads downhill towards the first corner. He's going to use that curb on the left hand side to open up the entry then. Fourth gear, holding it, and then planting that throttle pedal, heading through the exit, through turn 3 then, is completely flat, huge downforce working through these modern F1 cars. Watch the first sector time, it's not as fast as it was before. He's 300ths down, and so he's going to hit the throttle hard, heading out of turn 4 and on the brakes into 5, using a bit of that curving again. He's a little bit wide of the apex, but he commits hard to the exit once again. Uphill, turn 7 then, flicking it in, just missing those curbs on the inside, managing to control the oversteer just about in that very deceptively hard traction zone. Then he's flat through turn 9, heading up towards the last sector, out the second sector, and a turn 10, and he's found some more time. He's just 900ths up, but that could be looking at 2 more spots onto the second row. If that's as it stands right now, I'm all over the place at the moment. Then heading into the final 2 corners now, it's going to be full throttle all the way to the line then, as he holds it in 7th gear and opens up the DRS for one final time. Watch the time, it's a 1:10.807, right behind Cucumber, and 4th for the moment. Let's see if that holds.
Oh no, I'm watching on board with Lars as well. He got beached on the outside curb and he's just had to reset the track, which is fair enough because he got beached on that, and hopefully that hasn't impacted what Fleddy's doing on his lap time at the moment, because he literally resets the track right in front of Fleddy. So hopefully nothing too bad from that. QBR Gary comes into the pits to retire from the session as well, and still sticking on board with Fleddy. In fact, I think he has slowed down. Yeah, he has. So Fleddy going to try and get as much ERS back possible and then go for one final run. Who else is currently out on a lap? I think Rocco is currently out on a lap, as no, in fact he's just completed a lap, or I'm not sure what's going on. He's got no ERS and no fuel, so I'm assuming he may have invalidated on his lap or something. Yes. But Yeah, who else is making their way up towards the line? I think I know Jim's just starting a lap. Yeah, I think really the furthest one along is probably going to be one of the Aston Martins. I think Chris is our next one across the line.
Yeah, Chris now circulating out there on the track, heading out of turn number 5 and continuing on through the second sector. Well, let's see what he can do in the dying embers of this qualifying session. He uses that sausage curb, manages to keep the car stable, heading through turn 8. Not an easy thing to do, and opening up the DRS for the second time on this lap. Watch the second sector time, it's reasonably quick. It's well into the 49s, a 49.9, and that could be putting him potentially up onto the second row, maybe even ahead of Cucumber. If he can hold it, the rear end threatens to step away through turn 12, but he keeps it all together and keeps the throttle hard down now to the line. He scrubs off quite a lot of speed through the last corner, but we'll see if that doesn't bother him. He does go third on a 1:10.756. Now let's look further down the order for the next drivers up. Jim is next in the AlphaTauri, but Invalid won't be finding any more time out there on the circuit. Sweet Crown in the Mercedes is next, but he is off the circuit, actually going through the old layout then. He won't find any time either. So Pays is next up then, 50.1 for the first 2/3 of the lap. D-rating on the run to the line, only 11th then, and not a good session for the AlphaTauris. Everyone else looks to have already wrapped up then, so a fairly anticlimactic end to the session with Russell's very early time enough to grab that pole position just fractionally from Shadowglow. That's your front row.
Yeah, very, very close. I don't think Nathan actually had to make any sort of improvement whatsoever. I think his first lap was just good enough, and that was it. So, very good lap time from him, chucking it straight onto pole position. Shadowglow in second, and trying to make his case as well, both of them, for this championship, especially with Verstappen down in 5th position. Chris and Cucumber lining up on the second row, Verstappen and Sweet Crown on the 3rd row. Slash in 7th with Lars van der Linden in 8th, Gary in 9th with Fleddy in 10th, Pease in 11th, June in 12th with Luke in 13th, Rocco in 14th, Lifebout in 15th after not actually completing a lap after being on his only lap, and Hazara in 16th. I think he had a quali ban anyway, so came in, chucked himself in the car, and that is basically that. So he'll be starting at the very back end of the grid. But any sort of surprises for yourself at all, Dan, with who's been where? Like someone a bit lower than you expect, someone a bit higher than you expect?
Well, certainly with Cress, who's just been promoted into Division 1, and he's been a bit of a surprise in the few races he's done it up to this point, I would say. But to put itself up into position 3, very, very impressive, just over a 10th off of pole position. So right in the mix heading into that race. I'd say that's probably the biggest surprise I could take from that session. Certainly no surprises from the front row, two highly seasoned drivers who are going to be disputing that lead heading into turn number 1. It's a reasonably long run into that first corner, and we'll see what the tyre choices are, if there are going to be any differences in what these drivers are going to do strategy wise as they head into the race now. So they'll load themselves in. We'll see what the prevailing strategy is for this race as they come in then. But yeah, Nathan Russell on that pole position, and he's been chipping away at the championship lead over the last few rounds, and well, real opportunities, only 2 points off the championship lead. Shadowglow right there as well though. It's very, very tight, but this race you could certainly see that order getting shuffled about.
Yeah, you certainly can, and I'd be expecting at least one of those guys to Verstappen as well, sitting down in 5th. I'd expect him to try and maybe go for something towards the start, but then again, you also got Cucumber just in front of him, and we know the pace of what Cucumber can bring, so I won't be at all surprised if we maybe see him try and attempt something on Chris. I mean, yeah, I'd have to agree with you. Chris up in 3rd after getting promoted from Division 2. You can just see that his pace is just absolutely insane as well. So, and he's merged it well within Division 1. So, all kudos go to him. Hopefully, he's able to try and stay up to the podium for Division 1 for this evening. But in terms of tyre allocation of who is on what, we're seeing quite a lot of the soft compound tyre, especially for the front 4. Verstappen making a bit of an interesting one, and P5 on the hard, so he's going to look to try and go a lot longer. Remember, it is a mandatory 2-stop strategy, so he's going to try and go a bit longer on those hards, and then maybe go for a double soft stint at the end. Slash on the mediums, as well as the bottom 3 on mediums, and then Gary, Fleddy and Doom on the hards. As I said, everybody else on a set of the soft compound tyre. I think Luke is going to try and Luke and Pease looking to see if they can make their way through the field as soon as possible. Because if they get stuck behind these guys that are on the hards, I think their race is pretty much going to be already over after the first pit stop.
Well, that tyre delta in the opening few laps is going to be huge, so that is what they're going to have to take advantage of in those opening few laps to the Grand Prix. There is a solid amount of variety, which is good to see. That Verstappen choice, I agree with you, is a little bit intriguing to see if he can maybe hang on in these first few laps, but it is going to be something of an uphill battle, and seeing hards in a mandatory two-stop race is quite unusual, but 4 drivers have elected that that is the best strategy. Both McLarens, 1 Ferrari, 1 AlphaTauri. So we'll see how that strategy is going to pan out. But those opening few laps are going to be very critical for those drivers, and of course the aforementioned Pease and Luke, as you said, then down the field are going to have to take advantage of that extra soft tyre red walled grip on the opening lap to make gains. 33 laps though ahead of us. It is going to be a long barnstorming race. We'll see if they can make that progress early. But up at the front of the field, Russell, Shadowglow coming up to the line. Russell, I think, is usually pretty fast off the line. Shadowglow will try and dip into the slipstream, try and get that run towards turn 1. So as they begin to form up on the grid, then anything can happen, because there is a bit of a pinch point at that first corner. That means it can all kick off down there. Let's see what happens.
Yeah, it was certainly well. So as they're all lining their way up in towards the grid, we're just waiting for Lifebout and Hazara to make their way up to it. Mr. G. Russell versus Shadowglow at the very start. Dan, take us through it.
Here we go. The throttle is being applied then. The drivers are ready and waiting, and away they go for the Spanish Grand Prix. And it's a brilliant start for Russell. He jumps well clear off the lane, as I can't see anything with my camera angle, but there we go. He does have the lead of a small lead of a couple of car lengths. That Shadowglow just tucking into the slipstream. I finally get a camera angle, and through they go. He leads. Shadowglow, Chris, Cucumber still battling away further down the field. You can see Sweetcrown has made places, and Verstappen losing, unable to hold on those hard tires as they filter through to the end of the first sector, then almost lying astern amongst the lead group, but battles galore down the field. Lars is looking at Verstappen, can't quite find an opening then. Pease making ground, he's up and alongside Gary to the outside at a turn number 5, but you can see the tyre grip of the softs compared to the hards. There's just nothing those McLaren drivers can't fight with, as Lars goes 7th then. So Verstappen falling back from 5th on the grid, has to settle in, has to try and hang with the group in front in these early stages as they head towards the end of the second sector, with Russell controlling things at the front, not looking to break away as we saw in Monza, keeping that battery, keeping that powder dry, if you will, as they all swap places down at turn 10. Those hard tyres not working on this opening lap, Jack.
No, it certainly isn't. Pease going around the outside of Verstappen out of turn number 11. Very nicely done from the AlphaTauri. Up 3 places off of the start already as well. So very good start from Pease, and expecting him to maybe even jump up ahead of Lars van der Linde very soon as well, because he's just looking like he's got that extreme pace at the start of this race. But yeah, the two McLarens now basically together, trying to hold back Luke. I saw Luke was trying to go around the outside into turn 10 as Lifebout and Fleddy both side by side into turn number 1. Lifebout just holds on up ahead of the Ferrari as they're making their way now through turn number 3, and they're all sort of filtered out now. Doom, not sure what's happened to him at the start. I don't know if it's because he's on those hards, but has dropped down 4 positions from the start as Fleddy now losing the position to Hazara going down the inside out of turn number 4. I think a little bit of a squeeze from the Ferrari, and now allows Rocco to go on through as well. Rocco now up into 14th, well, it gets a nice little tap on the back from Fleddy there as well. So I wonder if Fleddy's picked himself up any damage, which is why he's going a little bit slower than usual. But yeah, Hazara and Lifebout as well as Pease making a very good start to their race so far. But top 4 remain as they are. DRS is going to be enabled on the next lap, Dan.
Yes, it is, of course, unlike F1 in 2024, we do have to wait an extra lap for DRS to be activated, and then you'd imagine the train will commence as Rocco and Fleddy still battling it out, heading through the last sector at turn 12, but you can see the Ferrari washing out, unable to stay with the medium-shod Mercedes. The hards just lacking grip at this early stage. That cannot be said for the race leaders then as they filter through. Russell still leads, Shadowglow, Pease, Chris, and Cucumber heading to the end, at the start of the third lap. So everyone's somewhat line astern. Luke and Lifeboat are going at it, and as Lifeboat continues his charge in front of the Aston Martin from the back of the grid. It's certainly a strong effort. He now runs 11th in the second highest of the medium runners on those yellow wall tyres. Pease, as you said, he might be able to get a move on Lars. He has done that. He runs 7th now, heading into the second sector in front of the Williams as they run through P7 and 8 then, with Verstappen and Gary and the McLarens trying to hold on those hards. They aren't offering the grip just yet. That will probably change in a few laps then, but at the moment they're just going to have to grin and bear it. But they may have a better chance because, while Russell leads, he's not burning the battery and not making any effort to pull away in these early stages.
No, he certainly isn't. Pizarro's going to go for the dart on the inside and looking towards turn number 10. Luke's going to go for a bit of switch from him as well. That's a bit of an oversteer moment, does the Aston Martin, and that meant Hazara was able to stay up in front of Luke. Now up into P12 on those medium compound tyre. Luke already struggling on those softs in comparison to his counterparts around him, and now is within the battle with the guys on the mediums and the hards. So, as I said, Luke needed to try and make up some of those positions. Unfortunately for him, he's now back to where he had started down in 13th position. Rocco back up to where he started in 14th, and I think is eyeing up a move on Luke very, very soon, but I don't think he's going to be able to, especially in this DRS train. Meanwhile, a little bit up in front, I'm just keeping an eye out on that. Chris is starting to put a bit more pressure onto Shadowglow, and Shadowglow just, I saw going a little bit defensive going into turn 4, but moved straight back onto the racing line after that. So I don't know if Shadowglow is going to start to feel a bit of pressure coming from Chris behind him. We may start to see some moves go down very soon, Dan, as these tyres start to sort of degrade a lot more.
Yeah, some drivers will be able to hang onto those tyres better than others, so we'll see if that is going to unfold in different ways for each of these competitors. Then Cucumber as well is quite close to Chris, because I don't believe the pace at the front is particularly fast. Russell is just controlling things, keeping it under wraps, not really a threat from an overtake as of yet. But as we can see, just visually then, as the whole train of cars runs with just a couple of car lengths in between them, no one really being put under a whole lot of pressure. Even the hard runners look fairly secure in this train. Does Shadowglow feel an attempt at the race lead then, as he closes on Russell, and it's going to be a simple manoeuvre to the inside of turn 1, and that was more of a voluntary swap of possessions then. So Shadowglow leads the way in this race, as Gary going backwards and his Lifeboat is round the outside of turn 1, gets it to 10th, continues to move up the order. Hazara is going to get interested as well, can't find any way through, but you can see these guys that didn't set times in qualifying on the mediums making very good headway in these opening laps. As Lifeboat gets a bit out of shape, just able to stay in front of Gary. Hazara, Luke continuing to slip back. The tyres are going to start overlapping, I suspect, and you're going to see that now as Verstappen up behind Lars, maybe looking for his own way through. But Slash at P6 I think is an interesting one. On the mediums, he's stuck with the pace in the opening laps. He's had to use a lot of battery, so maybe that fighting potential isn't quite where he wanted it, but we're getting to the point now where his tyres should be among the best in the field.
Yeah, certainly are, and I think we're going to start to see. Yeah, I think you're completely right. I think Slash is basically going to have the most advantage going forward from now for these next few laps until those hards are going to be then the best tyre to be on. But DRS is now going to be enabled, of course, for everybody else. Lifeboat, I was just watching on board of him, was so close to losing out to DRS, and as I said, that could be Verstappen now up in front of Lars and getting himself back into P8. Mr. G Russell as well, getting the move done for the race lead, so he's now back into the lead of the race. I think they're just happy with just chopping and changing at the front end of the field, just happy with just keeping themselves in first and second. But then that's surely got to mean Chris is going to start to get a bit agitated at that kind of keep on happening, and may look to go for some sort of move very soon as well, because you could look how close he is to the back of Shadowglow, almost practically pushing him through turn number 5. But yeah, Kvyat Verstappen now back in front of Lars. I think that is going to start to indicate those softs are starting to go off. The mediums and the hards are now going to start to be the better tyre, and I'm going to need to try and keep on board with Slash, because I think he's going to be the one that's going to start to put the cork in the bottle with everybody else. As I say that, Lars getting overtaken by Lifeboat, and Lars in fact dropping down at 3 positions. I wonder if he's picked up damage.
Or if he just made a mistake through 9. Looking for that front wing. It looks fine to me, but he has slipped down the field and is only just in front of Luke now. I wonder if we're going to see any pit stops at the end of 6. Doesn't look like it amongst the lead group. They all still run in formation. I'm still watching Chris. He's got nearly a full battery, but he's not forcing anything at this stage. Verstappen looks more urgent, though, as he begins to chase down back to Pease as the hards really start to come into their own in the rear end of the AlphaTauri, squirming as he tries to find traction coming out of turn 1. The softs are starting to fade, and Verstappen knows that. Then the championship leader looking to advance, but at the moment he is just bottled in. But you can see the extra grip he has heading through the middle of the track. Is he going to force when he feints inside? Doesn't go for it as of yet. He is being typically very, very patient, as the whole field pretty much lifeboat behind is the first car detached from DRS, but only just. Everyone in front running pretty much line astern, almost nose to tail in some cases. Cucumber's got a full battery in P4, so a lot of these guys are holding up. The pace, as I said, is not particularly quick, I think, and so these guys are all just holding something back, almost just cruising along, ticking along, running in formation. So we're waiting really for a catalyst to set that off, and I wonder if we're going to see any pit stops here.
Let's keep an eye out. Is anybody going to make their way into the pits? It doesn't look as if anybody is coming into the pits this time. As I say that, Luke is the first one in the pit, so Luke is making his way into the pits. We'll keep an eye out on what tyre he's going to opt to go on. But in terms of the battery situation with everybody, and especially with Cucumber, to quote a good old school 3000, if you've got 100% battery, you're just losing time, because you could be using that to try and maybe make your way past Chris in this instance. But if you've got 100% battery, you're not exactly going to gain any more from that. You're only going to use it just more so in a straight line, or if you're right behind someone. So yeah, I'm surprised Cucumber's not sort of trying to utilise a bit more of this battery, and he's just content with keeping it 100%, because he's just going to lose time where he could be making it up and getting past Chris and sticking on the back of Shadow Glow and potentially even go for his race lead. But yeah, Luke, he's coming at the pits, chucked on a set of mediums, now 20 seconds behind Doom. We'll see if where he ends up coming out when everybody else decides to make their pit stops. Are we going to see anybody make their way in on this lap, though, now that they've seen Luke has made his way into the pits?
Well, they respond. We're coming to the end of lap number 8, but the lead pack, apart from Sweet Crown, the Mercedes dives to the pit lane. Of course, there is a bump on the pit entry that these guys are going to have to watch out for, but we're starting to get busy down then. Pease in, Lars in as well, so the softs are taking those tyres off at the moment now. And of course that does release some of the medium and hard runners behind to chase down. Verstappen in particular now has Slash in front of him. Slash beginning to get distanced by the leaders, surprisingly, but I think that was partially because of Sweet Crown stop. Mediums for all three of those drivers, as it was for Luke, so that seems to be the consensus strategy coming off of these soft. Sweet Crown emerges all in clean air. He's got to get the hammer down now, as I'm watching Luke come out. He's just behind Lars, so those two now running their own private battle at the rear of the field at the moment. But Sweet Crown from Pease, these guys are going to burn that battery. They're going to use up the tyres. They're going to use all their grip. They're going to get the hammer down, try and make a ground here, because with the field so bunched up at the front, just that one lap undercut, if you get the outlap right, that could set you up for much better track position later on.
Yeah, it certainly can. We'll see where Sweet Crown and Pease are going to emerge out, because Pease, he's managed to come in, stick behind Sweet Crown as well, and stick within his DRS, so they're going to be able to make up. I've worked out a couple of positions on this as well. They may even jump up ahead of Cucumber and Chris. There's a few more people into the pits now. Nathan into the pits, with Chris in the pits as well. Shadowglow and Cucumber have opted to stay out on those softs. Slash also opting to stay out on the mediums so far as well. So let's see the two people that were in first and third, where they're going to emerge out in terms of where Sweet Crown and Pease are. Sweet Crown just making his way around the final corner now, and same with Pease. Chris is still in his box for me. I know it's just glitched, so ignore me on that one. Chris has actually gone on another set of the soft compounder tyre, interestingly enough, as here comes Sweet Crown now. Is he going to be able to get the jump on Chris? Chris on the softs, Sweet Crown on the mediums, on the outside. He goes both side of each other. On the inside goes Sweet Crown for that one. Gets the move done. Pease is also going to try and follow suit, going to try and go around the outside of turn number 3. They're both still side by side. A little bit of wheel banging between them. Almost free wide going through there. He's even trying to maybe go for it on Sweet Crown as well. Is he going to be able to get the move? He's trying to out for Gary. And now going towards turn number 5, Pease is going to have that inside. I don't think Chris is going to be able to do too much on that. Still saying that he's still outside by side. A little bit of a shove out on that, but I think Pease was more entitled to that corner. And Chris now down into 14th position behind the both of them. Sweet Crown getting the jump on them. Unfortunately, not in the DRS of Nathan because of that battling though. Into P12 he goes, Mr. George Russell. Nathan up into now in a P11, and of course the other two guys that were battling within this, that were battling all together are now into the pits as well. And Fleddy, interestingly, also coming into the pits on those hards.
Yeah, he's getting rid of those hards very early, going even on pit strategy in terms of the laps done. He's put on the mediums. Cress's strategy is one to look out for, certainly, as Pease draws a level with Sweet Crown down the main straight, but gets completely out-dragged by the Mercedes despite having DRS open. I think he wasn't on the overtake button. There is where Shadowglow re-emerges. Sweet Crown, I think, just ran into the back of him there as he emerged from the pit lane. I don't know if he's got any damage. Looks like he's mostly got away with it then. I'm watching on board with Cress, who looks for revenge. He moves up to the outside as well as Sweet Crown dives inside, gets Shadowglow right off the bat, moves up to P, number 9 on the road then. P's up to the outside of Shadowglow, breaks a little later. Is he going to get run out of road on the outside just like Chris was on the last lap? They're almost touching up towards turn 7, but eventually P's has to yield, and look at the soft grip from Chris, who's frustratingly bottlenecked Cucumber as well. Has given up quite a bit of track possession in as Chris on the offensive outside of turn 10 draws level and tries to get slightly in front. He's got his nose ahead on the outside then. Pease can't squeeze him out this time. Now outside of turn 12 Pease, he's going to wash across the outside of the track surface. Nothing he can do about that, and through goes Chris. Finally reclaims that 11th place, that breathless action out of the pit box as everyone looks to jostle in terms of strategy. But look at the way that Russell has just disappeared up the road. Shadowglow's going to move past Sweet Crown on this main straight, because really these guys now, despite all the action and the battling from all of them, they've got a bigger objective then, because the net race leader has scampered up the road and these guys now have a common goal of chasing that Alpine back down.
Yeah, they certainly are. And whilst all that was going on, I was just riding on board with Gary. He got the move done on Lifebot into turn 1. Interestingly, I don't know what happened with Lifebot, because he just went extremely wide out of turn 1 and just meant that Gary got the easier move done. So he's now in front of Hazara as well. Again, I think that was another move that was made down into turn 4 as well. So Gary now up into the race lead at this moment. But I've got to assume that these guys are going to be making their pit stop on this lap. Same with Doom. I just don't think they could because of their other counterparts as well, other than Lifebout and Hazara. So let's see. Hazara into the pits. Gary stayed out. Lifebout stayed out. Doom, not too sure. Doom's come in the pits, but Hazara's got a 3-second penalty for multiple warnings. I'm assuming that's going to get removed unless he gets another warning, because that was in the pit lane. So very strange, but yeah, as long as he doesn't get another warning, I'm sure he'll be able to get that one removed in this session as well. Shadowglow now setting the fastest lap of the race, and you've got to think for Nathan, he's going to start to see that Shadowglow is going to approach him just a few tenths at a time, but it's then also going to mean that Shadowglow is going to be burning his battery, and you can see it. Nathan on 30%, Shadowglow on 20%. So all of these guys are starting to burn their batteries. Chris has actually gotten past Cucumber now as well, so now up into a net 3rd position. Of course, with still Gary and Lifebout yet to make their pit stops, as Fleddy keeping up ahead of Luke going into turn 4. Stays up into P12, very nicely done. And Slash, of course, also picking up that 3-second time penalty. I'm not sure if he picked that up going into the pits, or like the same as Hazara, or if he did just end up going off track. But either way, him and Hazara, the two with a 3-second time penalty so far.
Yeah, we'll see if that list is added to during this race. One thing to comment on with Chris, he put a very tough move on Sweet Crown on the last lap at turn 10. And ended up forcing the Mercedes man off the track, so I think that one may be looked at in the stewards room later on. Gary, Lifebout, they each come in. It's going to be softs for Lifebout, mediums for Gary, so they will emerge from the pit lane on different strategies. Let's see how that one is unfold. Shadowglow in 2nd place, burned off a lot of that excess battery on the last lap, only for a very small gain on the race leader. Cress running in 3rd place then. You suspect he has more pace in the locker, at least for the next couple of laps with those softs, but unable to really make use of it, then bottled up in third place at the moment. So that is the first round of pit stops pretty much done. Remember, there is one more to come later in the race. Nathan's lead, Russell's lead, is holding fairly steadily in 1.7 seconds, and Shadowglow's ERS advantage is gone. He's got lap fresher tyres, and ultimately that's what he's going to have to leverage then, because Russell's going to continue pounding away up the front then. I don't think he's going to give up this lead very easily.
Yeah, no, I don't think he is going to give it up very easy. I think Shadowglow's going to need to try and do something something spectacular. I hope that Mr. G. Russell may out in front, but of course Chris and Cucumber are latching onto the back of that as possible, and I think we may see a pass go down because Chris is using a little bit of his ERS on of the final corner. The ERS is now open for the Aston Martin. You can see he's gaining the Williams. He goes down the inside, reaching turn, moved on now up into second position. So now Chris on the charge, and Nathan is going to see that Chris is the one on the charge on those softs. So now Nathan has got to try and play this a bit smarter. He's got to try and make sure he doesn't use as much of his ERS as possible. Despite the fact that maybe Chris will end up catching up to him, he's got to try and make sure he keeps on top of that ERS, because you've got to think as well, he's probably going to go on another set of mediums or go on a set of softs at the end of the race. So at the moment, it's still, despite Chris being on these softs at the moment and game, although saying that, I think he's dropped by about 2/10 on this lap alone. So Chris not making up the inroads as what we thought he would on these softs. The softs are starting to go off for him.
Potentially has lost about 3/10 on this lap, so he may be beginning to struggle for pace just at the moment when he took the front of this group. More good news for our race leader in the Alpine as he continues to stretch his legs, keeping that battery under control as you alluded to, and continuing to romp away at the front of this race. That pit stop phase worked perfectly for him. Chris looks only interested in holding on to that second place. He's running in the middle of the road. Ultimately, it's futile to try and hold back Shadowglow, as Cucumber still in waiting behind you. Since if he used the overtake button, he could have gotten into third position then. He may need to some because Chris's pace is falling away. Slash moves up past Fleddy, further down the corner, and Hazara on Rocco. They make contact at the pinch point of turn number 2, and Rocco had to get out of that one then, and I don't think he'll be too happy with the way that one unfolded. And Hazara into 10th is at the third corner. We've got two cars sideways and backwards then. Lars and Luke didn't see what happened then, but both the Williams and the Aston Martin off the track and cut adrift then. Did you see what happened there down at turn 3?
I saw that. I think Gary made slight little contact with Lars. I think Gary was sort of, Lars was sort of washing out into the side of Gary, and there's not much that Gary could really sort of do. But it looked like Lars had hit the side of Gary, and then I think Luke may have then caught on the inside of Lars with that as well. So caused the both of them to spin. Gary's still perfectly fine going, so he only hit the back right of his car. So I think he's still okay to continue, but and doesn't have any sort of damage on that front wing. So yeah, looks like he's perfectly fine, but very unfortunate for those two guys as they weren't running too well in the start of this race anyways. Cucumber now getting a move done on Chris, and now Cucumber is going to start to utilise a bit more of that ERS. Now he's going to start to put in the time that we're going to see of what the NSX driver can do. Only 5/10 of a second behind Shadowglow. Shadowglow, by the way, has started to make some gains onto Nathan as well, despite using a bit more of his ERS. His Life Outtake picking up 3-second time penalty for cutting a corner, so an instant 3-second time penalty for the Red Bull. But yeah, Shadowglow, he's starting to gain onto the back of Nathan now, only 1.2 behind the Alpines. So we'll see if he manages to claw himself into DRS on this next lap, because he's doing a very good job of it. And Nathan, I think, is going to start to use a bit more of his ERS. He's now down only to 20% when he was on 30, I think, on the last lap.
Both of them burning quite a lot here on this lap hit, because this fight, although it doesn't look very dramatic, it is absolutely crucial in the context of this race. And ultimately, I think it is tyre age that comes into it. Even still, he gained nearly a second on the last lap to cut that gap down. Now it's just over 1 second. Does Cucumber, though, look interested in maybe bridging that for himself? He runs in third, and there's a good opportunity for him to leapfrog, and that's exactly what he looks like doing then, as he closes in down the main straight, pulls pulls to the inside lane, and Shadowglow does not bother to fight that Cucumber. Now runs P2 with over 70% still of ERS, and now just 8 tenths back from the leader. Peas gets past Sweet Crown and trying to follow through as Verstappen. He's got 3-lap fresher tyres. The door was shut initially. He looks wide line into turn 3 to get a better exit. Then Peas is still under pressure from the Mercedes, but the McLaren is the one looking all over the rear end, trying to snatch up an overtaking opportunity as we head past half distance in this Spanish Grand Prix. Ultimately, it does not open itself up though, as these three run in their own private battle. Hazara and Slash run behind both of those with penalties. There's a good train building up behind the Alfa Romeo, all the way down to the 13th place McLaren, driven by QVR Gary. So the race is fracturing into several different groups. 3 main ones then, the one in the middle that I'm now currently looking at, Pease, Sweet Crown and Verstappen, the smallest group out there on the circuit, trying to get it, but ultimately have been detached from the top 4, which is now a complete unit. Then as Cucumber at last has closed right up to the back of Nathan with almost a full battery to use, over 3/4, heading out the last corner. And you have to say the Alfa Romeo, at least in this second stint, looks the most comfortable in this lead group. His pace to pull back Nathan was truly extraordinary, as he has to lift to stay behind. He's playing a smart game here, just watching and waiting as Pease gets swamped down the main straight by the other 2 men in that 5th place battle. But back to the leaders, Nathan's lead, it's more under threat than ever, and Cucumber, you'd have to say, has managed this race exceptionally well to this point.
Yeah, he certainly has, and I think Nathan we might be seeing another lead change go down in a minute, because Nathan is he's been caught now by the rest of these guys, and as you say, with Cucumber sitting on 80% of his ERS, I won't be at all surprised if the NSX driver goes for a move on that next lap, and probably won't be on this lap, it will more than likely be on that next lap. But we've also got to take into account a second pit stop is on the horizon for a few of these guys, because especially the guys that are on a set of softs like Chris, like Lifeboat, like Rocco, they've got to be thinking about their second pit stop very soon. Whether they go on another set of the softs, whether they go on the mediums. I mean, for Chris's instance, he has to go on another set. He has to go on a set of mediums or hards because he's done 2 sets of softs. So, yeah, Chris, he's going to have to maybe think about making a pit stop very, very soon. I would say probably within the next 2 laps. But here we go. Are we going to see the NSX driver of Cucumber go for a move onto Nathan? He's hanging onto the back of him. You can see he's looking to go for it. Down the inside he goes and into the lead of the race. NSX Cucumber now into the lead of the Spanish Grand Prix for the League of Europe. QVR Verstappen also going for the move on Sweet Crown down the inside towards turn number 1, and the championship leader now up into 5th position. A pretty good lap for him, because he's now going to see that his 2 championship rivals are sitting in 2nd and 3rd position in front of him as well. So he's got to try and hold on up ahead of Sweet Crown and Peas. Are called 3-lap fresher tyres in comparison can make a massive difference on the degradation side. So we'll see if they're able to do so. So Zara, didn't realise, made a move on Lifeboat and on Slash, and is now up into 8th, and has managed to bring this pack onto the back of the 3-car train of Verstappen, Sweet Crown and Peace. So now 5th all the way down to 13th with Rocco at the back of that train are all within this train for 5th position, and I think things are going to start to kick off very, very soon, especially with the tyre difference on everybody here.
Yeah, I think on that point about tyres, I think that Sweet Crown and Peas being at the front of that group with the oldest tyres in the entire field is ultimately what brought this entire group back together as one. They run a few seconds off the race lead, but Verstappen, look at the way he's taking off then, burning up all the pace that he has and running himself, trying to get up to the group in front. Then Rocco pits from 13th off the soft tyres. Then that will be his final lap. And just by the way, Lars has gone off about 5 times in the last 2 laps as he re-emerges. So I'm not exactly sure what's going on there, but he's a long way off, well, pretty much every car. Still ahead of Luke, but I believe Luke has taken that second mandatory stop. Indeed he has. So Lars, not looking like a particularly great race for the Williams man at this stage, as still looking through the order. Verstappen trying to take off, then he's guiding these guys along, but himself is very low on battery. Hazard you can see on the back of Peas, and really Sweet Crown and Peas, both these guys just struggling for pace on the older tyres. These guys are surely going to have to pit soon. We're around about that last pit stop phase anyway. Hazara is honing in, and now you'd have to say is a good time to get rid of those mediums then as they go off.
Yeah, it certainly is. So we'll see if anybody's going to maybe make their way into the pits on this particular lap with just over 12 laps left to go of the race. Are we going to see any of these front runners make their way into the pits? We certainly do. Mr. QVR, Nathan, G. Russell 63 into the pits, as well as Chris. So both of those guys making their way into the pits. Of course, Nathan will probably go on a set of softs. Chris will have to go on a set of mediums. But now things are going to start to shake up. A few other guys making their way into the pits. Our championship leader, QVR, Verstappen into the pits. Lifeboat in the pits, and Fleddy also emerging into the pits, and see what tyres everybody's opting to go on. Nathan goes on another set of mediums, Chris on the set of mediums, and Verstappen on a set of mediums. Lifeboat on the softs, Fleddy on the mediums. So Lifeboat, the only one out of the five that made their way into the pits to chuck on a set of softs. For some reason, Lars van der Linden is on a set of the wet tyres. Not sure what that's about, but Gary getting a move done on Slash, and a massive bit of oversteer for Hazara coming out of turn number 4.
Yes, indeed. So we continue on then. Hazara running up behind Peas and Sweet Crown at the moment then, as they will continue to lose time to the two now race leaders, Cucumber and Shadowglow. But a very important lap for these two, because Nathan going for that undercut yet again. You sense he may try and make a break through the pit phases as he did before, but of course he does give up that tyre life later on. So let's see what the response is going to be from the top two. Cucumber in, Shadowglow out still in the Williams. He will take control of the race lead then. He continues on for yet another lap as Lars rather predictably retires after a lap on the wets, then throwing in the towel after the end of this Grand Prix. We're seeing a much busier pit lane at the end of the 22nd lap of 33, so this race is starting to hot up towards the finale, but we have to keep a lookout and see where Cucumber and Co are going to be relative to the rest of the contenders. There is Nathan down the pit straight, and Cucumber comes out using that overtake to stay in contention, and stay in contention he looks to have done. He runs very close to the edge of DRS range. Is Nathan going to make a break for it with battery? Doesn't look like he will. So Cucumber, if he can just survive the cold tyre phase, he can claw his way back with the battery he has, and Cucumber, despite staying out a lap longer, is teetering on the edge of that 1 second, but I presume he can pull that back, and with a lap fresher tyres and a lot more battery, he can use that to good effect. But Nathan does have a bit of an advantage for now, 1.2 seconds, but once Cucumber get those tyres up to temperature, I suspect the pendulum may swing the other way.
Yeah, I expect that as well to happen. So we'll see if Cucumber is able to get himself back within the DRS range, get those tyres heated up as soon as possible. Shadowglow now into the pits himself. Hazara also making his way into the pits. Gary following in as well. Slash opting to stay out. Doom, we'll see what the Spaniard is able to do at his home Grand Prix. Interestingly, has got the yellow fuel light on, so he is looking at running out of fuel potentially at the end of this race. We'll see if Doom's able to maybe try and claw some of that fuel back in. But Nathan, you can just see now already gotten past Shadowglow. Same with Cucumber, same with Chris. In fact, Chris might even be eyeing up a move on Cucumber in towards turn number 1. I think he's just going to be content with sitting behind him for now. But Shadowglow all the way down into 5th position, or net 4th position, but is now joined with the likes of Lifeboat and QVR Verstappen after staying out for an extra lap. I think that has probably killed his chances of a potential win for this evening, unless the guys in front of him end up in some sort of massive battle. I think that's going to kill any sort of hopes for Shadowglow for winning this evening, as Rocco and Fleddy both side by side of each other. Rocco up the inside of Fleddy in through turn 4. A little bit of a swerve from Fleddy and from Rocco as well, but Rocco holds on into 10th position. By the way, also saw him pick up a 5-second penalty for ignoring yellow flags. I think that was because of a retired car from Lars on the last lap, so hopefully he'll be able to get that 5 seconds removed at the end of the race. But yeah, very close battle between 10th, 11th and 12th, all pushing each other along as they're now making their way up towards turn number 10. Hazara is looking very racy on those soft tyres, attempts to move around the outside on Mr. CPI Fleddy on the Ferrari. Is going to have the inside, sorry, for turn number 11, and again they're both still side by side of each other, and I think Hazara's going to try and move his way up into it. He does, up into P11. Very nicely done from Hazara.
I'm watching this battle for net P2 with great intrigue as Chris closes on Cucumber, decides to back off at the end of the straight. His Lifeboat moves past Shadowglow. He did stay out longer. I think it was one lap too many. Hazara and Fleddy both past Rocco on the main straight, then at the front of that DRS train. Ultimately not the place to be for the Mercedes man. So powerful, the slipstream and DRS down that main straight. It's almost indefensible if you're at the front and they are that bunched up. So Rocco down to 12th. Still, of course, points on offer now for every driver that remains currently in the race with Lars' retirement. So at least 1 point will go the way of everyone, including Luke in 15th at the moment. So that's one thing that they will have going for them, as Cucumber finally begins to swing the pendulum back his way in terms of time. It's just outside 1 second. So he's trying to make that gap without using a lot of battery. Of course, he does have a lap fresher tyre, so that advantage will stretch, and he begins to haul it back. He uses a bit of that overtake. I imagine Nathan is doing the same to try and keep him outside of that range. I think he may have just missed out by 1,000th of a second then, and still without DRS, but now teetering within 1 second as Slash pits from the lead, and now I believe everyone has done both of their mandatory pit stops, and it's just a straight dash to the checkered flag then inside these final 8 laps.
Yeah, it certainly is. So it is just a straight race now to the end of the race. June setting the fastest lap of the race so far with a 1:12.3, very good time from the Spaniard, of course sitting in P14. We'll still also get that fastest lap point if I am not mistaken. So yeah, and as you say, points all the way down into 15th as well. But yeah, top 3 all within DRS of each other. Lifebout is starting to make some gains onto the guys out in front of him as well. 2.8 seconds now separating him and
Spin Rocco! Spin Rocco into the wall out of turn 4, takes up away, and a full safety car has been deployed. My oh my, what a twist. I was just watching behind with Fleddy in the Ferrari, and Rocco just dropped it on his own heading out of turn 4, then lost the rear and brought out a full safety car at this late stage in the race. And now we've got a fairly intriguing prospect. Most of these drivers are on quite fresh tyres, still quite good tyres, you would think. And I don't know if these leaders are going to be too enthusiastic about potentially giving up track position. But for a driver like Fleddy on 4-lap old mediums, it may be worth... Well, no, Nathan does dive into the pit lane. Cucumber stays out. Chris comes in, as does Lifebout. Shadowglow stays out. Look at the difference in strategies here. Difference in philosophies, you could say. It's a busy pit lane, but a couple of drivers electing to stick it out then and gamble on track position like Gary is doing, who's going to jump all the way up to P4 on the road just behind his teammate. Of course, he doesn't have a penalty either, so that puts him right into contention, at least initially. And Slash, despite the penalty, is really the big beneficiary from this, because he just put on a set of the soft tyres and now runs P5. He hasn't had to give up anything, and is now, without that penalty, you would say, right in contention here. But this changes the complexion of the race massively, and well, the top 2 in the race, Nathan and Cucumber, different philosophies, different strategies. Which one is going to be the winning one?
This is completely shaking this up, isn't it? Everybody, Slash, by the way, yeah, jumping up ahead of all of these guys, only on 1 lap older tyres as well, after making that pit stop. I very wished he'd stayed out just for 1 more lap. If he'd stayed out for 1 more lap, he would have hoped that would have been the case. But yeah, the top 4, all on the medium tyres. Of course, their tyres are going to be better at the end of the race, but that's pretty much going to be on the final lap of that race. And a little bit of League of Europe history for you. Who remembers where Gary's first podium was in Division 1? I think, if I'm not mistaken, I believe it was Spain. If not, it was Austria, and I'm getting confused with either of those 2, but I'm pretty sure it was Spain. And Jerry picking up a potential podium for this evening in Division 1, just behind his teammate. He's got to get past if that is the case, but also got to remember he's got the charging guys behind him on the set of the soft compound tyres, so this race completely shaken up. I still think the Cucumber has got a good shot of winning it, but the rest of the podium, I really don't know.
It all depends on the charge from the fresh soft runners, and Slash's position in this race is so intriguing at this point. Look, by the way, from the back of the field, just putting on a new set of the softs. I hope he gets back on soon enough so we can get back to green flag racing at the end of this lap. That would give us a 5-lap shootout for the Grand Prix. It is, of course, a fresh set of softs going on the Aston Martin, as he's also bugged out. Now he finally emerges from the pit lane behind June, the only driver that made their pit stops under the first lap in the safety car to go for the mediums. He doesn't have much to lose in terms of track position, so he's just hoping that the last few laps he can take advantage. But that crossover point, as you mentioned, is only going to come in the last lap or 2, so especially this extra lap on the safety car is going to benefit those soft runners no end, especially Slash, who with slightly older tyres is going to need all that yellow flag running we can get. So Look, I imagine, should be able to get back on, and we'll get back to racing on this lap. Cucumber will control it, but really he's relying on the drivers behind him to create a bit of a buffer. But I imagine Shadowglow in P2 is not interested in that, and he has got all eyes on the race leader. Fascinating stuff as we get ready for the final 5-lap shootout.
Yeah, we certainly do. So safety car is going to be in at the end of this lap. When is Mr. NSX Cucumber going to opt to go? Is he going to catch out Shadowglow? And of course, the two QVR drivers behind him in the McLarens, of course, also being the championship leader. I think Verstappen is going to be quite happy the fact that the safety car has come out, because it gives him an opportunity to try and fight for this race lead. But he's also got to think he's got Mr. Gene Russell sitting in P6 on those soft compound tyre. He may not see it, but he will know very, very soon that he is sitting on those soft tyres in 6th. But when's Cucumber going to opt to go? He's making his way around to the second to last corner, goes quite wide out of it, and I think he's opted to go now. So out of the second to last corner, has caught Shadowglow napping a little bit, but Slash is the one that is the closest out of the lot of them from everybody else. And in fact, saying that, Nathan is now all over the back of Slash. He's using that ERS as much as he possibly can. He wants to get this move done ASAP on those softs. He's going to try and go for it. Slash is also trying to go for it on to Gary as well. Down towards turn number 1. Slash going to try and hold it down the inside. A little bit of contact between him and Gary. Through wide, going through turn number 2. So Nathan trying to hold it down the inside in through turn number 3. He's going to have Gary in front of him. They're trying to go for Gary as well. Is he going to be able to get a double overtake on both of these guys down the inside into turn 5? And he certainly does. No wonder why he is trying to fight for this championship lead. Up into P4 already. Slash going to go down the inside of Gary. I don't know if Slash can actually see Gary, because that just looked very odd contact. But up into P5, he now goes. Gary now unfortunately down into 6th position, and he's got the whole whirlwind of soft runners down behind him. And Pease and Hazara were side by side through there. Hazara just had to give that one up. But now Nathan up to P4 and trying to chase down the championship leader. 1 second separating them, but I know that gap is just going to drop ASAP.
Nathan is on a charge. How can he fare in these last couple of laps? Cucumber holding on to the race lead. He's kept the battery dry. He doesn't want to burn it just yet, because he's got to worry, of course, of the second place man, Shadowglow, running behind him in that Williams. Keep you on board with Nathan, and he's burning that battery, trying to close that gap. No DRS as of yet, as we watch them all dueling down the straight. Sweet Crown on Gary gets the move done on the McLaren, who's simply a sitting duck at the moment, falling through the field almost uncontrollably. Now runs P7. Pease tucky up behind the McLaren, looking for his own way through. Look at Nathan fly. Look at Nathan go. He's up to the inside of turn 4. He's going to go through, surely, on his championship rival to P3. He is flying then inside the last 4 laps and is staring down the top 2, looking for a late charge to the win. Was that strategy the right one? Side by side for P7. Pease, Gary running up towards turn number 7. Then Pease gets the move done on the short drag uphill. He clears Gary. Hazara is looking at Gary as well, so the McLaren continues to slide. The McLaren continues to slip, unable to hold on. He's looking for a counter-attack, can't find it. Hazara looks inside of 10, breaks a little bit later, climbs all over the sausage curbs, almost loses the rear head and comes back in, and Gary's able to hold that one. But Hazara tapping, prodding, looking for a way through, can't quite find it at the moment. But Russell, Nathan, his charge continues. He slots up behind the Williams. He picks up the slipstream with DRS. They're both using the overtake button. Shadowglow will know how crucial this is as well. Nathan pulls out the slipstream, looking to the inside, but Shadowglow rallies then with the slipstream off of Cucumber. Nathan dives inside at turn 1 and gets the move done on the exit of 2. He sweeps to position 2 on the road. His charge continues and Shadowglow can't hold it. He was all over the road, Nathan, out of turn 4, but he has second place. He's used almost all that battery, but Cucumber, with the fresh softs of the Alpine staring him down, he's got more battery, but can he possibly hold off this charge?
I think it's going to be almost impossible for Cucumber to hold this one off. With 2 more laps left to go, I think Nathan is going to be able to get this win for this evening. I would have thought if he was still down in 3rd at this point, it would have been a bit of a tall order for him. But now up in the 2nd, of course, with the lack of ERS, it's going to play a bit of a hindrance for him. But if he can just sit behind Cucumber for now, just let him drag him along just for 1 extra lap, I think we're going to see Nathan potentially win this race for this evening. But as I say, just 2 more laps left to go. A few other position changes went down Gary now unfortunately down to 10th position. I think getting forced out by Hazara through turn number 1 on those soft compound tire meant that he also dropped from Lifebout of Peas up into 7th position now as well. And Sweet Crown all over the back of QVR Verstappen. But here we go for the race lead. The three of them are all going to try it. Shadowglow basically pushing Nathan through up into turn 1. Shadowglow had to back out of that one. I don't know if he picked up damage from hitting the back of Nathan, but it looked like that he had hit the back of the Alpine. And now Nathan up into the lead of the race. There is yellow flags at the back. That is Peas, unfortunately. I was just saying he's moving up through some positions and has had that spin out of turn number 2. So very unfortunate for the AlphaTauri. But yeah, Nathan now up into the lead of the race. Cucumber and Shadowglow sitting in the DRS still of the Alpine, and you've got to see that the amount of ERS that Cucumber has still got in comparison to Nathan. If you can just hold on to the DRS, all hope is not lost for the NSX driver for this win for this evening.
This last sector so crucial for Cucumber, then the gap just half a second. He needs to maintain that through these final few corners. Then of course the final 2 corners are almost flat out in race trim, and certainly with the low fuel these guys are carrying, but it's all on the line then, heading up to the final lap then, just 1 to go here in Spain, and he's already using that battery. He may have just 1 crack at the race lead, and Nathan knows that as well. He darts to the right, he darts back to the left, but the closing speed is immense. Here comes Cucumber for the race lead, goes inside a turn 1, has the race lead once again. He runs it in deep, and Nathan fights back. Outside of turn 2, they touch, they bang wheels, and through goes Nathan again, and Cucumber almost off the track as he re-gathers it up then. That was a brilliantly timed and placed counter-attack to the charging Alfa Romeo. He closed right up down the straight. He almost had the move, but just overcooked it, maybe a little overzealous. Nathan retakes the front of the race, and I think that is where he will stay, barring any major mistakes. Shadowglow looks to try and grab a late second place then on the Alfa Romeo, who seems to have completely cooked the tyres right at the critical moment. He gets out of shape through 10, and here comes Shadowglow now to the outside of turn 10, gets half a car length in front. He's going to be a full car length in front through the entry, and I think he's going to make that move done. He does have it. Heading into turn 12, Cucumber tries to fight back, but futile, meaningless. Slash trying to move through on his teammate, but doesn't have the tyres, the pace, or the penalty, of course, against it. But round the final corner, Nathan with a last gas move. He takes his 3rd victory of the season. Nathan wins it. Shadowglow 2nd, Cucumber 3rd, Verstappen, Sweet Crown, Gary 6th in the end after all the penalties. Slash, Fleddy, Hazara, Lifebout, Luke, Jim, Chris and Peas. Those are your finishers. That's your result, and I'm going to need a lie down after that. What a finale.
What a race that was. New championship leader, of course, now Mr. G. Russell 63. Wow, that was absolutely insane race. Very unfortunate for Peas on the final lap, losing his front wing after all of that as well. But yeah, Nathan now up into the championship lead. I think Shadowglow's even jumped up ahead of Verstappen after that as well. So wow, very intense final lap. I thought Cucumber, when he got past Nathan, I thought he managed to hold it, but it went too deep after all of that. And that cost him not just 1st, but 2nd place as well. So, yeah, very unfortunate for the NSX driver. Another podium for him at least, but 3rd position, not the bit of the podium that he would be hoping for. I mean, it was a commanding lead to start off with. Got caught up by the end of it. That last car safety car, we didn't know if it was going to be too risky to do what he did or if it was going to play out for him, and in the end he played it perfectly, and fair play to Nathan for that one. And not just run through the rest of the runners for yourselves as well. Verstappen in 4th with Sweet Crown in 5th, Gary into 6th with Slash in 7th, Fleddy in 8th, Hazara in 9th with Luke round out top 10, Drew in 11th with the fastest lap, Peas in 12th, Lifebat in 13th, and then our DNFers of Chris, Rocco and Lars as well. Very unfortunate for a lot of them. I think Chris actually did manage to still get across the line, so just Rocco and Lars unfortunate DNFers. But wow, what an intense race that was. And Nathan, it says 1.2 seconds ahead, but I don't think that justifies how close it was throughout the entire race.
I think we can say first stint was calm, second stint was exciting, and the third stint was just pure chaos. That was quite some race. Ultimately, a lot of the results from qualifying carrying over, including the top 2, which seemed fairly unlikely until the last lap. Shadowglow as well with that last gas pass on Cucumber that we saw. That was a pretty thrilling conclusion, and as you alluded to, we do have a new championship leader. Well, he didn't start the season in particularly glorious fashion, but G. Russell, Nathan, it's his third win from 6 Grand Prix, 7 races in total if you count the Singapore sprint. He missed the opening round, he barely scored at the second round at Silverstone, but on his way back in, and at this point, that momentum he has looks pretty difficult to overturn.
It certainly does, indeed. So we'll see if Nathan is able to do that going forward into the standings later on down the line. Is Baku up next for round number 7? But we have got a break week next week because it clashes with the real life Jeddah Grand Prix. So yeah, 2 weeks time, it's going to be Baku. We'll see if Nathan's able to hold on ahead of that. Dan, just want to say thank you, of course, for letting me join you for this evening. I hope that you will be joined by Jake next time. But if not, I am always here to happily jump in because that was very fun to watch. So, yeah, I'm hoping to try and do something for D1 again very soon.
Yeah, very fun to watch and very fun to be alongside you once again. It really has been oh so long since we've last done this, so that was quite a pleasure. As you said, 2 weeks until the next round from Baku, which always produces very calm and civilized and uneventful league races. So that is what we have to look forward to next time. That was, of course, a very tongue-in-cheek comment. It should be chaotic. That is where you're going to see us in 2 weeks' time from Baku. Make sure not to miss it because this D1 season keeps on giving, keeps on twisting and turning. But we have a new championship leader. We will see if he can hold on to it. So, for myself and Jack, with just about everything said and done for the 6th round of the LOE D1 Season 11 Championship, it is goodbye and until later, we'll see you next time.